It happens in a moment. They're standing there, right in front of you. You say something to them, they say something back, and something inside you snaps. You can hear the ringing growing to a crescendo in your ears. You can feel the heat rising in your cheeks, and you hear a hard edge to your voice as it grows steadily louder. Around a year ago, I was hosting an event in my apartment, and one of the guests was so rude, so disrespectful that I thought, you know what, I need to take a walk before I deal with this. So I left my own party, I left my own apartment, and took a walk down the hall, and halfway along, I spun around and slammed my fist into the elevator door. I know, it's completely ridiculous. I left my own house, my own party, because someone annoyed me, and then attacked an inanimate object that had done nothing to me, damaging my hand in the process. I legitimately fractured a knuckle doing this. It's ridiculous, but we see these visceral reactions all the time. How often have we responded in anger and haste to a text message or an email or a Slack for all the corporate people out there? Key way to annoy your employees, Slack. How often do we get angry at inanimate objects around us because something didn't go our way? How often do we get mad at a computer because it shut down our Word document before we're finished saving? Or at Netflix, the overlords at Netflix, because they didn't load our video fast enough and in the best quality. The reality is that anger lives. It's a monster that curls up inside us, that looks out through our eyes and speaks with our lips, and worse still, it chokes our common sense and strangles our better judgment. 6 years ago, I walked out of a nightclub in Paris. Now, walking out of a nightclub in Paris isn't the same as walking out of a nightclub in, say, Toronto. You're not looking at an empty street full of hastily summoned cabs. Instead, you're stepping out into a city alive. Alive with the echoes of a revelry and not quite ready to fade away. And we stood there, my friend and I, on a narrow street bordering a road split down the middle around a long island. And on that island, the party continued, with shouts and cries of joy, and vendors set at intervals along the way, selling smokes and soft drinks and snack foods. The latter of the two were things that at that point, we deeply desired. You see, nights in Paris, summer nights in Paris, are hot and humid. Our clothing stuck to us with every movement and our throats were parched. And so, with a quick glance to the left and right, we jogged across the road to the island. Immediately, my friend spied an abandoned couch and he sank gratefully into one of the remaining cushions. I, on the other hand, made my way over to the closest stall. As I grew closer, I made eye contact with the vendor. I nodded, he nodded back. I pointed out a couple of the things that I wanted. I didn't speak French, you see. And he ended up collecting them, and I got ready to pay. I pulled out my wallet, and as I did so, it happened in a moment. A hard bump against my shoulder, and I took a half step back. I glanced around, scowling at the man now disappearing into the crowd. But when I looked back at my wallet, I found that where before there had been over 200 euros, now there was nothing. I stared at my wallet, shocked, stunned, confused, and angry. I didn't know what to do. But in a moment, my friend had appeared at my side, and he said, "Hey, did that guy just steal your money?" I think so. "Oh, well, we have to go after him." He shook me, out of my shock, out of my confusion. Yeah, of course we did. And so we shoved our way through the crowd, ignoring the anger and the shouts and the annoyance of the people around us, and eventually we caught up with him. But as we caught up with him, his friends rose to meet us. 6 of them in all bigger and definitely stronger than we were. Now I was woefully unprepared for this sort of circumstance. I didn't speak a lick of French, and moreover, this is one of the first times that I had been traveling by myself. But my friend had been living in Paris for the better part of 3 months, and so he spoke the language. A few sharp words in French, of which I understood none, and the man responded back, and back again. Eventually, he and his friends laughed and waved a hand in a gesture that even I could understand. Get the hell out of here. And so my friend nodded, and we walked down the road to the police car, parked a few blocks away. A few spoken words, and the police officer reluctantly got out of the car and made his way over to the group of men. Now they were no longer laughing. Now they were furious, and angrier still as the man patted down and searched each and every one of them. But as he arrived at the thief, I already knew the conclusion. I wasn't getting my money back. Worse still, when the police officer finished, he looked at us, he shrugged, and he made his way back to his car. I struggled to keep the anxiety off of my face as I looked to my friend. But at that moment, we did the only thing that we could. We ran. Impotent rage has a hunger to it. It's an anger that demands action, yet this is an action that you cannot possibly give it. And so it eats away at you, chewing you up inside. As you scream and you yell and you rage against the night, but in the end, there's nothing that you can do. Those next hours were a blur as we wandered the streets of Paris, and I would be lying if I said that that experience didn't flavor trips to come for years. Now, Morocco is nothing like Paris. It's nothing like Toronto or even Ottawa. In Canada, you can see the influences of our European heritage upon our architecture, on our buildings. In Paris, there's a clean scene where the old world meets the new. But Morocco, in many ways, is a world untouched, unchanged. With wide, dusty streets and sun-baked brick, the sun itself, a flat, yellow orb hanging in the sky, glinting off of tiled rooftops. Almost a year had passed since my experience in Paris, and in many ways I felt like I had gotten past it. As soon as I got back to Canada, I enrolled myself in karate, in kickboxing, and every self-defense and combat course I could come up with, because the next time, and there would be a next time, I would be ready. It lasted like 2 weeks. And with time, my anger and so my obsession had faded. And so, when I was in Morocco, I felt excitement. The kind of excitement that only comes with entering an entirely new country, ready to experience all that it had to offer. And in the week that preceded, we had visited the souks, the flea market, spent way too much on fantastic mint tea, visited a leather tanning shop, and taken hundreds upon hundreds of photos. But that day, myself and my cousins thought that we would call it early. And so the three of us made our way out of the market and began to walk back to the hotel. It became apparent fairly quickly that we were being followed. Though, to be fair, the people following us didn't seem too concerned about being discreet. I stood on the far right, my youngest cousin in the center, and the one about the same age as myself to the left. The young men formed up around us, two behind, one to my right, and another flanking us on the left. I felt a brush at my shoulder and looked around to see one of the young men tracing two fingers up and down the arm of my leather coat. On the far left, their ringleader had started to talk to my cousin. I mean, I say talk, but due to the language barrier, it was more like aggressive sign language. But it was fairly easy to read. He pointed first to my cousin's hat, then to my cousin's headphones, and then to himself. My cousin, of course, refused. He slapped his hand away, and it happened in a moment. The ringleader's hand flickered out and snatched the hat from my cousin's head. It was a signal, and as one, the lot of them made a run for it. A blink, and we gave chase. Now, let me put this in perspective for you. This was like a $10 hat, maybe like a $20 hat. if we're being super aggressive with the pricing. And the backpack that I was carrying had all of the passports and most of the money that we had for this trip. But in that moment, it didn't matter. It didn't matter that we didn't know the country, that we didn't know the city, that we didn't speak the language. It didn't matter that I had 2 younger cousins with me. I can't speak to what was going through their minds, but in that moment, I was not in Morocco. I was back there. I was in Paris that night, and someone had stolen from me, and I would be damned if I wasn't getting it back. We were lucky. As soon as they realized that we were chasing them, 3 of them broke off and went their separate ways, abandoning the ringleader. And eventually we caught up with him. And again, luckily, it ended without violence. We snatched the hat from him and he ran across the road, vanished into one of the markets. And it was only after, on the long walk home, as the adrenaline began to abate, that the what could have and what might have been settled heavily upon my shoulders. You see, anger is a monster that curls up inside you. It looks out through your eyes and speaks with your lips. It chokes common sense and strangles our better judgment. And worse still, anger is patient. It hibernates for years, and with the slightest noise, you see, it's a light sleeper, and the slightest trigger, it can rise up stronger, more powerful than before. And the worst part is that it feels good. There's a righteousness, a feeling of truth and veracity that comes with being truly angry. But like the worst of drugs, it has the highest highs, but it has the lowest lows. And when we fail to control it, those lows can consume us entirely. Thank you.